Welcome back to Between the Lines. Our guest today is Dr. Bill Johnsson, the author of this recent book, Embrace the Impossible, telling his story about how God intervened in his life. And I believe, Heather, we have just wonderful opportunity here when he's telling us about this youthful encounter with God.
Well, one of my favorite things in the book is when you say that you were working in a lab and you actually heard the voice of God calling you into ministry. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's sort of an inner voice, nothing audible. It's still very, very vivid in my head after all these years. It was a Friday afternoon. I was actually cleaning up after an experiment, washing my hands over a sink. There's a window behind the sink, lights streaming in. It was the winter time of the year, so, it was getting late. And it was like a voice said to me, "What are you doing here?" And I knew what it meant. It was God saying, "Why are you still here? You know I want you to go and study to be a minister. Why are you still here? When are you going to listen to me?" So that was the day, that was the moment when I said, "Okay, Lord, I'll do it."
So you had known before, but not yet responded to that.
Well, you see, we grew up pretty poor, and I'd worked my way through school, paid my way, and got a good position, getting good money. And, it wasn't easy to give that up. And launching out, it was a totally new career. Now, the college I was going to go to, a church college, was about 1,000 miles away. Listen, it could have been on the moon. That was the break for me.
Right.
I'm the youngest of a large family, very much attached to home, got myself established, and now God says, "I want you to give all this up and start again."
Right. But in your book, you say God loves the impossible. So he led you to do things that you never would have imagined.
Absolutely.
And in fact, you ended up ministering around the world, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Tell us about some of those experiences. You've been all over. You spent time even in India as a missionary,
we did.
right?
It's a lot of amazing stuff. Actually, I met my future wife at the college there. And then before we had graduated, before we had married, we're not even engaged, we get this call from the church's invitation to go out to India. Now people knew that we were in love, and but it was most unusual. We had not applied for overseas service. The call comes to us, as a couple. I was to be in charge of the boys at this little boarding school in India, and she was to be music teacher. And we went to India, and we were there 15 years, and from there we came to the United States. I taught seminary at Andrews University in Michigan, and from there to the Washington area, where I became editor of the Adventist Review, which is a very old journal and the general paper of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Now, when we talk about being an editor, because, with all that's transpiring today, I'm sure you've seen a lot of transitions from print now to the internet usage. What is it like to have seen that transition, especially from a church perspective?
Well, it's fascinating, but you have to be flexible. Today, communication is multi-platforms. To insist that it can only be print. You have to be flexible. You have to, whatever. Print. I'm a print person. Yeah, I love it. Always will be. But online, television, radio, whatever, all platforms, multi-platforms. So I've been fascinated by it, and I'm glad that the church I've been involved with, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, is very progressive. It's very open to multi-platforms. And of course, this show demonstrates that. Here we're talking about a book on television.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Now, in your mission service, was there anything that really sticks out in your mind, that really grips your memory when you were in service in India?
Oh, I tell you, India is amazing. You either love India or you hate it. If you hate it, you'll be out of there and never will go back. But we loved it. And actually, it was sort of hard to pull ourselves away from it. So, what stands out there? The people of India. They're so gracious. They're so hospitable. They invite you to their home, may not have much, but they give you everything that they've got to put on a wonderful meal for you. We just love the people of India. And it was a privilege. I'll tell you something, and this may sound shocking, but it was in India that I discovered that I was racist. It was in India. When I broke away from my own culture and became, one white face in a sea of thousands of non-white faces, I realized I had ugly feelings, not toward the Indians, but toward the native people of my own country, the Aboriginal people of Australia. I'd grown up with those feelings, didn't know it till I went to India. I'll always be grateful to India for that.
So how did you work through that? I mean, from a Christian, you're commanded by Christ to love everyone equal to yourself. But how do you work through that in a real way?
Well, you have to become aware of it, Samuel, first of all. And, we grew up with these ugly prejudices. We're not aware of them, because that's the way it is when we grow up. But I remember once, I was in a crowd maybe of 40,000 people. And there was another missionary white with me. And we went to hear Pandit Nehru, Prime Minister, speaking. It was an election rally. Wanted to hear him. He's speaking in Hindi. We're two white faces in 40,000 non-white. And he's speaking in Hindi, and then he looks right at us and starts speaking English. And then after a few sentences, he goes back to Hindi. But these things begin to work you over. You realize, hey, we are all people. We are people. Then I begin to think, the world I grew up in, we grew up thinking of the Aboriginals as not less than human, not animals, but not fully human. So, you become aware, and then the Lord helps you to go beyond that.
We're going to talk more about the Lord with Dr. Bill Johnsson, the Lord of life in Jesus Christ, when we come back after this break. Stay with us. You're watching Between the Lines.
For more information about any of the books presented today on Between the Lines, visit your local Adventist Book Center or go online at www.adventistbookcenter.com. If you are interested in receiving a copy of today's book and live in the United States and Canada, call 1-800-765-6955. That's 1-800-765-6955.